Welcome back to another episode of Just Say It. My name is Chase Davis, and I'm here with Matt Patrick. Matt, how are you?
Great, Chase. Good to be here with you.
Great. Before we get into today's episode, wanted to remind you of a few things upcoming. We're in the season of Advent as you're listening. If you're not listening during the season of Advent, then you've stumbled upon this podcast. We're glad you're listening. But December 14th, upcoming at the Well, we are having a deacon class. We're going to be talking about deacons today on the podcast. It'll be really helpful and instructional, but that class itself is for anyone and everyone who wants to learn about deacons, what they do, what their purpose is. Obviously, we're going to talk about some of that on the air, but it's for those people at the church, those men at the church who are interested in becoming a deacon at the Well Church. We'd love to have you there. So it's December 14th after the service. Before we get into deacons, though, we need to start with our opener, discussing what did you mean by that? If we had, the graphic designer, it would be like music.
Come in.
What did you mean by that? And
we'd show the tweet.
Yeah, and then it would show the tweet on. That would be so cool, wouldn't it? boulderwell.org/give. So, Matt, why don't you start first?
Yeah, all right. Got yours right here, Chase.
Okay.
This was yesterday.
Okay.
At 8:40 a.m. So you probably just dropped your kids off of school.
True.
Sitting in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Rocky Mountain Christian Academy, I'm assuming, sitting out there, banging out some tweets before you head to the gym.
Okay.
You decided to post, "Fix marriage, fix the nation. Simple as."
I was at the gym already. Yes, I was in the parking lot. And, people were asking, people were talking. Many people were asking me,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, lots of direct messages. Whenever somebody says that, I never believe them. I've been getting a lot of messages about, I'm like, no, you haven't.
A lot of y'all been asking about my hair routine. So great. So we're reflecting upon how does a Muslim Democratic Socialist get elected in New York City?
Yes.
Okay.
How does this happen?
How does this happen in America? Which is not Democratic Socialist, which isn't really Muslim. And we're looking at the demographic breakdown, really, I nerd out on that stuff. I think you do too. You can look at precinct level data, all that kind of stuff, and you look at how people voted, and it's a fascinating study, and this has been noticed by many people. This is not
Much noticing.
This is not unique, but it is like NBC, CNN, everybody's reporting that younger women, in large margins, 80% in New York City voted for this guy, Muslim Democratic Socialist, Mamdani, I think is his name.
Yes.
And so the theory is that in marriage, you see married men and women align many times. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they don't.
Hopefully.
But they should be aligned on their values, on religion, on how they were going to raise their kids, that kind of stuff. And there's a huge gap between younger men and younger women. And so part of my theory is that because we've totally redefined marriage in America to mean something other than what the Bible teaches about marriage, it's led to a breakdown of the family and children and what people should expect from government. And so a lot of women are looking at a socialist like Mamdani, and they think that person will protect me, will give me housing, will give me food. And what they're basically saying is that person is a good husband. Socialism is a good husband because they don't have one. And so, that's where that came from.
Okay.
Just firing them off. The next one was break marriage, break the nation.
Yeah.
The marriage is the fundamental political unit. It's before the nation. So it's an important thing. Let's get to yours. Oh, it just disappeared. There it is. All right. This was 6 days ago.
Okay.
So this was before Halloween. So if you're listening, think back before the time changed, before the candy, before you had to limit your kids' intake of candy and do the dad tax. When you dad tax, what do you take from your kids? What?
Well, they kind of get off because I don't really like candy.
Oh.
Candy's not really my thing. Maybe Reese's Cups are the only thing I go for.
Yeah.
And my kids they just bring me their offering, like they're coming to the temple once a year. They know that the Lord will rain fury on them that will send locusts to destroy their crops.
All their candy.
If I don't at least get a tenth of their Reese's cups. But
you know what? I saw a funny thing online about this. There was a mom who was going through her kids' candy, and she's like, "We got to see which ones are poison, because some people give out poison."
Oh, yeah.
And she identified the peanut butter cup. She's like, "This is all poison, kids. You can't eat this." And the kids were like, "Oh, okay, Mom." And she just hijacked all their Reese's peanut butter cups.
I just use shame with my son mainly. I don't with my daughters because that would go too hard. But my son, he's like working out a lot now. He's trying to get into that, and I'm like, "Wow, way to undo that bench press you did today, there, bud."
Yeah.
And he'll be like,
you're
right. Like, eat some more protein powder.
Yeah.
Throw that candy in the trash.
Great. Well, in keeping with that theme, he tweeted, "Adults in costumes at work? ? Nerds. Grandpa would have bullied you senseless."
Yes.
And, the reason I love Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, is because people say stuff like this, and you're like, where is this coming from? That seems a bit harsh, but what did you mean by this?
Yeah, I mean, so I was driving to work, and I saw adults going to work in costumes.
Yeah.
And I was appalled. I think it's terrible. I think, let me be a little more deep and philosophical here on it.
Get esoteric on us.
Yeah. So what I think we've seen happen in adults and culture is this kind of ever, like, it just goes forever, like your childhood experience into adulthood now, right? So many things that were designed for kids, now adults do. And it's like part of their normal thing. You could pick on video games. You could pick on a lot of different things. But I think dressing up in a costume is a child's thing. And then you go to where you work, where things like professionalism are to be a marker of like quality of work, and your dress and your attire is part of that. It's really hard for me to go to the bank and there's a Playboy bunny behind the bank, because that happened.
What?
Behind the counter. I mean, not dressed absurd, but like going with that vibe.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, I don't, like, no, like, I'm not doing a transaction with you. That feels dirty and wrong. So that was part of my motivation there.
Got it.
And then, or if I see a man covered in blood, and it's like, and he's supposed to like fix my car, I'm just like, no, I don't want any of you people to do anything. And I think they're just like trying to be children. And I get it. They're maybe trying to have fun, but there's a lot of other ways to have fun as an adult.
Yeah.
Other than acting like you're 10 years old again.
Yeah.
Right. I was also appalled that night at, I really don't like Halloween.
I can tell.
I just hate that holiday. I think it's stupid. I like Reformation Day, all that kind of good stuff. But in general, I think it's a dumb holiday. I think it's full of demonic worship and people in front of their houses like do all that stuff. But there's just so much around it where I'm like, this is annoying. And then at the end, towards the end of the night at Trick or Treat at my house, I had like a bowl of candy out front. And I won't get too far into it, but a group of adult women dressed up came up to my house and took the rest of the candy.
What?
Like handfuls. And so I'm like, that's what I have in my head of an adult who dresses up already, is the kind of adult who would still go out and trick or treat.
Wow.
And so hence nerd.
Got it.
Yeah.
This is deep for you.
Yeah. Very deep.
Were you allowed to trick or treat as a child?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. See, I wasn't.
Yeah. I mean, like,
I would expect this kind of animosity to come from someone like me.
Yeah.
Who was, obviously I was oppressed and, held back from expressing my full self.
Yeah. This is why you're so conservative these days. You still haven't broken the shackles of your childhood.
That's amazing. Well, with that out of the way.
All right.
Let's get into the topic of deacons. You recently taught a class. You're obviously teaching a class again on deacons. One thing, there's lots of things we could talk about. The New Testament lays out two offices for the church, elders and deacons, or you'll hear presbytos or bishops. But that's the same as elders.
Yeah, so. The London Baptist Confession says bishops, pastors, deacons, but bishops and pastors are interchangeable.
Right. So these are two different offices that the church has. These are important for any church to have for different reasons. So I guess to start us off, why are deacons important?
Yeah, deacons are important because the Bible says they are. I mean, that's an obvious one. But if you look at it in Acts, is where we see deacons established, right? The men who were in charge of preaching the word were being distracted from doing their primary job, which was gospel proclamation, would be a short way of putting it. And they were tending to the table, as it says in there, too much. They were taking care of the widows and things like that. And so they came up with the office of deacon as a role, an office, so that people could fulfill their duties within the church without too much distraction. I mean, that's a really simple way of putting it. And so deacons are servants of the church. That's kind of that's deacon, that's what it means, right? And so they are people who have a predisposition and a calling as well, particularly to service in a specific area usually.
Yeah, it's interesting because the word servant translated in our Bibles, either servant, not really slave, diakonos, servant, is also applied to many other things. That's part of the thing with deacons is you have to kind of, you don't have to know Greek to understand it, but you have to be careful with like how you're reading the New Testament. For example, in Romans 13, the civil magistrate is called a diakonos, a servant, and yet no church would appoint the civil magistrate as a deacon just by nature of them being the civil magistrate. And so we want to parse out what a deacon is and does. One of the other things, a lot of Christians are unfamiliar with this office. They either think pastor's an office. Even talking about offices gets weird because they're like, it's just like employee. They think employee, and it's not so much that. It's an ordained position. But then at some churches, you'll have like the board of deacons, right?
Yeah.
And this was very popular in Southern Baptist churches particularly. And the board of deacons functions as like the trustees or the elders almost. They're like governing. So when we talk about deacons, let's get into like, what do they do?
Yeah, I would argue against what a lot of our Baptist brethren do with deacons. I think they have circumvented the office of elder and pastor and kind of put the wrong thing there of kind of ruling the church in a sense from a theological, preaching kind
doctrinal.
of level, doctrinal, all of those kinds of things. That's not what you see in Scripture when, or even early church history from deacons. That's not what they're doing in that, and so they're literally fulfilling functions in the church that the church needs, and so that can be very practical. If you live in a city that maybe has a high level of need to homeless, and maybe you have a lot of people who are in desperate situations in your church body, that can be a very all-consuming thing on the pastor to handle that, right? Like to take in all these inquiries and what's going on and deciding, hey, what's a worthwhile thing? Like that's a hard thing to figure out. What are you doing, Juniper? Juniper's in the studio if you're listening, and she's rolling around on her back right now.
She's being very odd.
But you're distracting me, dog. Stop. I just kicked you in the face. Sorry. For the people listening.
Oh, no, don't get that shot. That's a weird shot.
Oh, my gosh. Thanks for that, Bethany. If you're watching, you just saw that. If not, you're lucky. But what was I saying? Yeah, so a deacon's going to, usually it's going to be into a particular area. It's not every area of service that you could think of. That would be too much on a deacon.
Yep.
Deacons, I guess they could also, it could be a paid person, but generally speaking, we're talking about lay. Kind of positions. And so it's usually things like caring for the body. It could be something like in our church, I think about it a lot with, we have a lot of young families, lots of babies getting born. Yeah. And it's kind of, it could be even monitoring that and making sure families have what they need as they have a newborn in the house and meal trains and all of that kind of good stuff. It's a really important part because it what helps the church function as a church within its own body. And a lot of times I think people make the mistake of thinking of a deacon as purely for the external part of the church, like just those coming in with needs. It's also caring for the body itself.
Yeah, so there's particular needs in the body. Sorry, this is really distracting. I don't know what my dog is doing.
Stop it.
That's better. All right, so we're thinking about different roles in the church. So, like, you talked about mercy ministry outside the church. Yeah. What would be other roles that deacons serve? Because I think when a lot of people think of deacons, they may think of, like, somebody who is, like, mature or, like, wants to be an elder one day. But what you're saying and what we understand the Bible to say is that like, there's particular like needs that the body has, and that's important to emphasize, because otherwise it just becomes like an honorific, if you know what I mean. Like it's kind of like an emeritus president or founder of something, and they've just been here for a long time, so we're going to make him a deacon, and that's not exactly how it works. So how does it work?
Yeah, so it's definitely not like, I really hate it when churches do this with offices. It's like, you've been here a long time, and I think it's common to see in churches like, oh, this man's a good businessman in the community, therefore he's an elder here or a deacon. That's not how that should work at all. That does not mean that that man is qualified to be that or even has that calling. And so I think that the danger that a lot of people step into when they think of deacons and elders and things like that is they think of deacon as lesser than an elder and kind of a stepping stone, almost like a training ground to become an elder. That is not it at all. It's a different calling. So a deacon a lot of times is going to say like, man, like I feel a calling on my life to give a portion of my life to serving my local church in this capacity. That could be something as important as finances, right? That could be a finance team at the church that like that people are put on together, and maybe it's led by a deacon and it has other lay people from the church or even paid people from the church, that deacon's in charge of leading that, and they kind of own that area of making sure that the church is served well in their financial accountability, those sorts of things. It could be a lot of those things. So much like becoming an elder, there should be a time of proving, there should be testing, there should be theological acumen, there should be, you see it in 1 Timothy 3, right? The qualifications of a deacon are listed there, and they mirror pretty much that of an elder, right? So there's, which by the way, I think it's important for listeners to understand this, that if you're like, well, I'm not called to be a deacon or an elder, so I guess that list doesn't apply to me. I would say that's a list that everybody should aspire to in their lives for holiness and righteousness. But if you like don't provide for your family, you don't get to be a deacon or an elder. Right. Like if you just divorced your wife because you didn't like her, you don't get to be a deacon or an elder. Like that's just how that works. It's laid out very clearly in Scripture. And so it is I think people treat deacons as much less weighty than elders, because it's like, oh man, like an elder or a pastor, that's like the top tier position. And I'd say in some respects, hierarchically, it is from a functional standpoint of decision making in the church. But I would say kind of more in God's economy, it's not like it's a more valuable thing, or more or less valuable thing. Right. It comes down to the calling of the person and the individual. And some people are like, I have no calling to be an elder or a pastor, but man, a deacon, like serving my church through prayer. That could be another deacon role. Praying with people and that sort of thing is right up my alley. And I think it's good just to differentiate those two from one another. That's great.
So one of the challenges you get into today, and I would equate this with like women pastors or women who claim to be pastors, is it's very popular in charismatic circles to have husband, wife, as pastors. We see that often. And then you get an entire generation of young people who are raised in that kind of environment, and they've just never been taught biblically what the office of pastor is. It's reserved for men for a lot of reasons. But I think the same is true for deacons. And you see this in denominations like the PCA. They are trying to promote, in some churches, women deacons. So there seems to be a restriction there biblically, the way we understand it and the way we believe the Bible teaches, and historically, that the office of deacon is reserved for men. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, and so like that's a big one that people get confused on. And so first, I think you preached on it a while ago. You said like if you come across a text in the Bible that you're like that maybe doesn't sit well with you, right? Then you should just read it and just say out loud, "I love this scripture," right? Until you love it, right? And so when you come to 1 Timothy 3 and you read the qualifications of a deacon, it mirrors that of an elder. Right. And it says husband of one wife. Yep. And if Paul is giving explicit instructions, and he's been explicit in his instructions that pastors are men, if one, you can kind of make an assumption there that if he intended for women to be deacons as well, he would have said such a thing. He would have been husband of one wife or wife of one husband.
Right.
Like that would have been there. Some theologians make that argument. And so, but what you clearly see is husband of one wife. And so that's where we primarily draw that from. We also draw it from other texts where you can kind of pull it out a little bit and go, well, leadership in the church is for men, like the primary headship areas. And we're talking about a primary headship area of deacon, and so it would make sense that would be a man. That does not mean that if a deacon leads an area in the church, like prayer or something like that a woman cannot be on that team to help serve on that team.
Sure.
But it does mean the person leading that team as a deacon would be a man. The questionable one where everybody gets hung up is they go to it's Romans 16, one where we deal with Phoebe, right? And so Phoebe is called a deacon there, and so people are like, well, there you go, boom. And you already alluded to this, and you can share probably more about it than I can. You have much more Greek than I do, and I try to stay away from that kind of stuff because if you do, like, by the way, if you don't know Greek that well, don't try to reference Greek. Like my seminary experience taught me that, I'm not going to be the guy that goes, hey, in the Greek, it says this. Like, I'm not going to do that. Anytime I've done that, I've pretty much gotten myself in trouble.
That's funny.
But as a pastor, I'm able to research enough to when I read that, we have to see that when it says that about Phoebe, it's referring to her as being a servant. She was serving. It's not necessarily giving her an office, an ordained office within the church. That word is used to describe other people elsewhere, like you talked about with the magistrate. Right. It's not just in one place where that is there. And so I think that's a misnomer when people try to use that to prop that up. I would say that that's not a good argument to prove that Phoebe was in the office of deacon.
Yeah, and as it says in Romans 16:1, I commend to you our sister Phoebe, a servant of the church at Cenchreae, that you may welcome her in the Lord in a worthy way of the saints. And so the ESV translates it that way. Many other just translate it servant. So some translations that are more open to women being pastors or anything like this, they will translate it as deacon, I think.
Correct.
But yeah, it's a really big challenge. So like at our church, we would have, that's the hard thing is like we're trying to raise up men to be deacons. We're providing these classes. What are some needs at our church that would be good fits for deacon ministry? Yeah,
absolutely. When we have them, I think one of the big ones is getting into a building needs become more prevalent in a way, partially because you have a location and people can find you. And so they view you as established, and so they have needs. So there's a lot of outside needs that come in. I think that could be one. But the biggest one by moving into a building is actually taking care of this building, right? Is deacons can be a big part of making sure that the building is taken care of from a kind of facilities management, security on a Sunday kind of level to even groundskeeping and making sure that the place looks beautiful and looks nice and is well kept.
Yeah.
And is good at maybe even requesting and diverting funds towards things needed in the building. Like these are a lot of things that are very practical for us that I don't think a lot of people think about. Is like it's really hard during the week when you're supposed to be preparing a sermon, but like the grass needs to get mowed too.
Right.
Not that we're above that. We've done that.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's like, the grass needs to get mowed. These trees need to be trimmed. Also, we got to paint this room or whatever it might be.
Yep.
The list goes on and on and on, and a deacon can serve the church in a great way there.
I agree. Yeah, there's so many opportunities. One is like some churches will appoint a deacon over hospitality, so that's with greeters or kind of running the kind of, if you want to say the front of house, to use kind of a restaurant term, but like just that kind of role to welcome people. But yeah, mercy ministry, finance, facilities, hospitality, all that stuff. And so we're trying to make a conscious effort to provide education, training. We have in our church constitution a process for deacons, but we'd love for anyone who is interested to either attend the class, reach out to us, December 14th. Any other things that you think come up often when we're talking about deacons that we need to address?
No, I think it's for our church, like laying out the process would be helpful for people.
Yeah.
If somebody's considering being a deacon, and And here, oh man, I was hoping to be a deacon, and you have questions about that, I'm more than happy to talk to you. Chase is happy to talk to you. We can explain more on that and hear you out on that. Hopefully that didn't bum you out too much. But what I would say is that there needs to be a process, and we have a process for it. So what we're trying to do now is these classes. I would encourage men and women to go to these deacon training classes. We already had one. We're going to do this other one on the 14th. And I think it's getting a more robust knowledge about what deacons are, what they do, particular needs within our church. It's also a great time for us to hear back from the body as what they're perceiving needs that maybe aren't being met. We're not perfect. I can look at our church and go, man, there's a lot of things I wish we could do much better, but I just don't have the time to get to those things.
Right.
And so that's part of it. And I should add there as well, I think a lot of times I don't want people hearing us say that if you're a pastor, you're not a servant to the church.
Right.
Like you are, it's just a different capacity.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's not that you're above things now and you don't have to do any like manual labor around the church or anything like that. That's not what we're saying at all. But it's just different. And then continuing on in that process, we will have people, we will ask people like, hey, would you be interested in being a deacon over a couple of areas? So I think right now we're looking at kind of facilities.
Yep.
We're looking at hospitality being one, and then finance being another one. Those are the three we've kind of identified out of the gate that we're like, those are the big ones. And so be praying about that if maybe that's something that's you, and maybe you're like, hey, I'd love to serve under a great qualified deacon in one of those areas. That could be a great opportunity for somebody else as well. But if somebody, and we kind of confirm that, we have those conversations, and that person's like, yeah, I think I want to pursue this, there'll be some readings and some training time, meeting with some of the elders, some interview kind of stuff going on with that. And then it says per our constitution and bylaws, if we do have a candidate that the elders are like, yeah, we're behind this person, we'll submit it to the body. I can't remember how long they have.
It's 60 days.
60 days where it's like we do with elders, where it's like if anybody has any reason why this person should not be serving in this role or does not meet these qualifications, the body has 60 days to let us know about that. And then if nothing comes up after those 60 days, or if something does and it's fixable or not a big deal, we can we can navigate that, and then that person will be brought before the church, and we'll kind of confirm that thing, and then away that they will go. And so that's a really simple way of putting it, but I think it's important for people to know what that process looks like.
Absolutely. That's super helpful. And for our church, there are some resources you can go find, some recommended reading we give out in the class. Great books out there on deacons. And I think it's a shame that a lot of people don't understand this part of the church. It's a crucial ministry, a crucial function of the church. And so, yeah, we're looking for deacons. It's an important ministry. We have good opportunities for deacons. If that's you, please reach out to us.
Yeah.
And really just thank you for tuning in today. I hope this was helpful. Maybe you could share the episode with a friend or other people at the church who don't know what a deacon is, or maybe you grew up in a church where, your dad was on the board of deacons, and that meant he was like an elder, so talk about it with your family. But thanks for tuning in today. We'll see you next time.